What's up, everyone? My name is Matt. Welcome to another fantastic, glorious episode of Defender Fridays. I have a habit of starting things off talking about the weather, and I'm just going to say it's like 80 degrees, bright, sunny, blue skies here where I'm at right now. So if you are in a climate that is less than perfect, trust me, someone somewhere else is enjoying that sun, and it will be with you soon. Welcome, everyone. I'm part of the Lima Charlie team, and I'm looking forward to sharing this session today. We got a fantastic guest lined up. Before I jump into all that and introduce who he is, you might have noticed he's one of the new guys up on stage, if you will. I want to remind everyone, if it's your first time here, Defender Fridays is this time, this half hour, this 30 minutes every Friday where we delve into the dynamic world of information security with all sorts of seasoned professionals from all over the industry. I mean, there's some folks on here who I'm going to tell you, they call themselves incident responders and red teamers, but they are fantastic GRC people. They just won't tell you that. They're really good at it, though. Really good at it. That being said, every week we have a different expert guest to share some invaluable insights on topics. We're going to talk about everything from threat hunting to incident response to today, preventative security operations, which I'm excited about. It's meant to be informal, meant to be interactive. With that being said, I'm happy to introduce today's wonderful guest, Mike Hornsby, with a multicolored microphone. Does it change colors?
It does. Yeah, based on the quality of content going into it, it'll change red if it's like that's providing people no value. And
I like that.
believe it or not, my wife controls the color. You know what I mean? So she's like,
Okay.
people getting lost, dude. It's not you're putting people to sleep. You know, it's not a library.
Okay.
So
I
yeah,
like it.
no,
No,
it's
hold
totally
on. Hold
random.
on. Is there an API for that light?
How much money you got?
Okay. All right. I just want to know if you could like drop some sort of AI into that so we know when it's you talking versus when it's your alter ego AI bot
Yeah,
talking.
my yeah, that's right. My deep fake,
You know?
that's just figuring out answers quicker than me. No, there's another market opportunity though. I tell you, this
Just
is
saying. For those of you who may have missed the beginning, at the end of this call, Mike is going to go develop Teflon umbrellas, which and tie those into API-based microphones. But no, nonetheless, Mike, welcome to Defender Friday, sir.
yeah,
Please
man.
introduce yourself for this wonderful crowd here.
Yeah, Matt, you're a gem. Everybody is privileged to know Matt, and if you've seen him in person, it's like you didn't think unicorns existed until you met one, and you're like, wow, it's even more magical than I thought, right? So, my name is Mike Hornsby. I'm the senior solutions engineer at BLOKWORX. We're effectively an MSSP for MSPs, so we provide everything from full stack tool vetting, demoing, POCing, and vetting every other tool in the industry because it's a food court of options right now, all the way down to creating an onboarding process, manage SOC 24/7, 365, stuff like that. My history, just at a high level overview, got started in IT at an MSP in downtown Chicago. Worked there for about 3.5, 4 years, primarily the financial management and trading, like Vector, like that was who our target market was. Pivoted, did a year of active Marine Corps from 2018 to 2019 as a network administrator, and then pivoted off to the reserve, where I still serve and part-time, and then I'm full-time with BLOKWORX. So that's a little bit of my journey. Paper-wise, certs, take it for what you will, but I got a master's in cybersecurity in 2022. It's a lot of reading, a lot of writing, but
Dang, man,
most
you're
of my
legit. I didn't know that.
nah, dude.
That's
I
awesome.
know enough to know I don't know that much. So always learning, always growing.
That's right.
But yeah, no, thankful for having me.
No, the best teachers know that they're always students. That's for sure. That's awesome, man.
Did
Great
Yoda
to have
say
you here.
that, or did you
I
say
don't
that?
know. You brought up Yoda. We're now going to get some screen captures of things that Whitney knows Yoda has said. So just wait, everyone. There's a link incoming in the
All
near
right,
future.
perfect,
It's coming.
perfect.
Just wait. Just watch it after this. I'm telling you. At 101 Central, you can watch this link that's going to come through in the
Love
next
it. Thankful
24
for you,
minutes.
Whitney. Thankful.
But no, nonetheless, that's great to have you here, Mike. First off, I got a quick question for you. I'm always curious, like your background is, for anyone who's here, and I don't want to make this a Mike interview necessarily, but I do want to pick on one thing. Your background and where you started at, how does that kind of like, how'd that set you up for cyber? Like why go into role? Why go into this role? How'd you get there?
Yeah, good question, Matt. You know, it's funny, the current role I'm in, and this is recorded, so we'll just break out the candor right at the get. I was pulled into kicking and screaming.
Mhm.
Previous to this, I was our cybersecurity operations manager, so much more hands-on keyboard, much more 9 to 5 as far as managing our team and our SOC. However, there is a real footing under the case for prevention as it
Mm.
pertains to cyber. I think a lot of people acknowledge, you know, as much as heart disease is the #1 killer in America, cyber threats is also a big killer, but there's ways to combat and mitigate risk of heart disease. And there's just not a lot of messages out there right now
Mhm.
on the preventative measures we can take. We run into a lot of defeatist mindset that said it's not a matter of if, but when. So consider me the optimist of the cybersecurity space, but I do believe that with enough due diligence effort, we're never going to eliminate risk, but we can greatly reduce it. And so yeah, man. But I think, you know, the MSP start was important because I've seen cybersecurity analysts just start on a security side, but if you don't know the inner workings of it, anybody watching this, catching the recording after, if you're interested in cybersecurity, there is great merit in you know, level 1 help desk and basic desktop support, right? Like you got
Yes.
to understand the functions
Amen.
and the productivity that is impacted by a breach or by a threat, right? And one thing that I like picking on other security providers, is if you deploy security tools and they introduce downtime and the user can't work or whatever, then we're perpetuating the same problem that cyber threat actors are. It's downtime. That's the pain point, right?
Mm.
And so obviously data integrity and confidentiality are important, but uptime is time is money for businesses. You know, if a small
Man.
to medium sized business can't work, there's livelihoods behind that. So that's kind of the BLOKWORX message. That's my specific aim is, behind every computer and account and endpoint is there's a human trying to earn an honest wage and honest living
Yeah.
to feed their family. So we need to focus on prevention where we can.
I'm looking at a few folks in this attendee list and on this video panel here who I know have worked consulting roles.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, it's that distinction of understanding how important uptime is to a business is such a critical thing when it comes to what you build and how you go about doing what you're doing and everything like that. I think from a red team perspective, I'm not a red teamer myself, but I think, and I'm looking obviously at Jeff as hopefully he's going to smile as I say this. And from a red team perspective, like you're in there to help test networks. You're not there to bring
Right.
stuff down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
We also have the red team also has the goal of improving security of the organization, just
Yeah.
like defenders do.
Exactly.
It's just a lot of pride often gets in the way.
That's
Since we're talking
talk.
preventive controls, I want to start off with a super spicy take.
Okay.
Oof.
Preventive controls buys you time for detection. If the attacker can go from initial access to winning in less than an hour, let's say, you're just boned because on average, an organization will never have fast enough detection and response capabilities if the attacker can go from first shell to domain-wide ransomware deployed in less than an hour. We can definitely quibble about more time needed to be spent on detective controls as well. But if an attacker can win that quickly due to lack of preventive controls, which is extremely common,
oh yeah,
it doesn't matter what your detection capabilities are. It doesn't matter what your response capabilities are. You need to buy time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, Jeff, I don't know if I think I mentioned this to you before. I've always viewed like I've even written about this too, where time is this like crazy attribute that is on the defender side until the moment an adversary gets in, and then it becomes your enemy. And then the goal is for you to try and steal it back as quickly as you can as well. Like it's on your side because if you're in a clean network, then you have all the time in the world to learn it, understand it, profile it, build, you know, whatever. I understand the attack surface, the digital footprint, the threats, blah, blah, blah. Right. Call it what you want. The moment someone launches a spearfish and a click goes in, you've lost it. Like that asset.
You can build out your castle walls. You could figure out your guard schedule for the castle. But when there's an enemy at the gates, the time is no longer on your side. Like, oh wait, can we just shore that up beforehand? We declared it out of scope in our prior pen test, but we're not quite ready there.
That's my favorite one. An adversary coming up and being like, adversaries don't follow scope. Mike, you said something else out. This defeatedness culture. You guys run into that a lot?
We do. And Jeff, I appreciate the feedback on the Marine Corps Reserve side. We've done exercises and contributed to SANS interdepartmental events where like each branch of the military is represented with a 5-man team. We do CTFs every fall and it's a blast, and the National Guard always wins, and it's a really morale building time when you have unlimited money to train people, you know, and I'm not salty in the slightest, but yeah, specific
it's okay.
to
The Marines get the leftovers from the Army, but to be fair, the Coast Guard gets the leftovers from the Marines.
Yeah, that's a 90-minute webinar, and I want to respect your time. But specific to the defeatedness, I think candidly, if we're being honest, and again, candor's a BLOKWORX core value. A lot of people have been burned by empty promises from tools. It's a highly evolving space right now, which is great, which is awesome. We want that creativity. We want that competitiveness. But there are a lot of tools out there making very bold claims. And most often than not, when we're talking with people, they are very much aware of risk mitigation. They're very much aware of, you know, how to reduce attack surface. But I also, on the inverse, I travel, I talk to a lot of people. I'm on the road a lot, that want some remarkable magic bullet. And they go to conferences, they spend thousands of dollars, and they don't have MFA enabled. Yeah. So it's almost like we're educated a little bit past our obedience. And to go to Jeff's point, from a red team perspective, I win in a red team exercise because I know the network better than the team managing it does. And so knowledge is power. And so if there is a lack of awareness of what processes are nominal, what processes are not, you know, I've masqueraded as VMware processes that people just don't know that there's a missing character, an extra S or something, SVC hosts instead of host, right? Like it's just an awareness of what is baseline and what is normal. So
don't say run DLL 32, or else we're gonna conjure up the
not gonna blow it. Yeah,
the Cobalt Strike spirits.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But anyway,
yeah. No, I wanted to make sure I asked you about that, Mike, because I find that to be, I hate to say it, but it's weird to have this juxtaposition of like, why does this industry spend so much money if a lot of folks just kind of spend it, but spend it with disdain or like a loss of hope, you know, like, well, this is the best thing I can buy for right now. Yeah. So it's just what we'll do, you know, and I kind of want to go like, I kind of want to like change that mindset. I think what you guys are doing is changing that mindset as well, where it's like, look, you can actually make a difference here.
Well, you want the honest take. And if we want to, I think Jeff already took the.
I believe candor is a core value of this webcast.
It is a core value, and I appreciate Jeff leading off, so I don't have to be the bad guy. It's interesting when you look at you know, follow the money in a way, right? And so like I have colleagues at work, they bill $475 an hour to repair and stand up environments, right? This is post-compromise, rebuilding domains, rebuilding servers, right? It's costly. There's a lot of money in it. But there's also the component of we do see some defensive tools out there, and more like services, right? That candidly have gotten a little too comfy with their right of boom plan, right? So there's other pieces into it. And again, I'm not saying cyber insurance is an interestingly rapidly developing space, but in 2018, 2019, insurance firms are making 4 cents on the dollar. If anybody here is an entrepreneur, basic math, you can't run a business very long on that. So what did we see? We saw premium skyrocket, regardless of you having an incident. We also saw coverage reduced. And so the interesting thing and this isn't demonizing insurance, don't mishear me here, it's just an observation. The interesting thing is, you know, fire, flood, rain, tornado has existed since the dawn of time. And there's an algorithm to that based on where you live. With cyber, where's the algorithm, right? Where's the risk? And so we're seeing a lot of cyber insurance policies and questionnaires that are not built by, I respect every insurance professional in the world, they're not built by a technical engineer. They're very random. They're very Wild West questions. Yeah. And it's difficult. It's difficult to even qualify for coverage, right? And so I think that's why prevention in the message of it is gaining traction. I'm not saying you can prevent anything and everything, but it's all percentage of risk. And it's like Jeff said, right? How do we prevent footholds before they happen? How do we prevent that email before it lands in a mailbox? How do we prevent that shell before it's even initiated? Sub 10 milliseconds response time, things like that. But it is possible. It's just, and I'd pose it with this, right, as an analogy. How many people on this specific call listening know of someone who's gotten a cavity, or you had a cavity, or you got a root canal, right? Like it's not a good time. How many people floss 3 times or twice a day? Eric's a gem of a human being.
Eric's better than all of us, man.
And I already knew that.
You just got to get used to that fact.
And Eric being the overwhelmingly more responsible individual than myself. The interesting piece
only when it comes
is
to flossing. Only when it comes to flossing, man.
All right, we'll give you that. We'll give you that.
I'm also convinced there's a couple people who don't know what question you asked, Mike, but that's okay. We won't call them out by name.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, definitely not, man. Not my
They didn't
first
smile
time.
at that, so I know they're not listening.
That's awesome. But specifically, what's my point? My point is we very well know how to prevent some of this pain. But I think our culture, and this is specifically in a Western construct, I think we have gotten very comfortable with right of boom living. We have car insurance to replace our car in the event of an accident. We have health insurance to root canal our way back to recovery. But there are preventable ways to reduce risk. It doesn't mean you're never going to live without it, but there is legitimate ways to prevent some of this pain. And I think it's a cultural aspect. And I think, candidly, before we can even interact with somebody, there's got to be, like you said, a mindset shift and a belief that, you know what, I may not be the fastest runner, but there is ways to reduce my run time, and there is ways to eat healthier. There is ways to live healthier, right? And so it just takes hard work. It takes the less sexy things in life to do that kind of stuff. It takes diligence and effort, and that's
Progress,
kind of the angle
not
of perfection.
perfection. Yeah, you might not be able to
right.
run a 4-minute mile, but can you run 10 seconds less than you currently do?
Right.
And then 10 seconds more. The most important step you can ever take is always the next one.
That's right. I love
Let me magnify 2 things for folks here. Mike uses this term, which is a really good one to know if you're like getting started or earlier in your cybersecurity career, which is the right of boom or the left of boom. There's a couple of ways to interpret what that boom is. For some folks, like usually from like a vendor perspective, that boom is when an adversary gets into your network, and you want to be detecting as close to the boom as possible, preventing, it from actually happening. And, if I think of that boom as when an adversary breaks in, and it could be like, it could be everything from when the credentials are harvested, or when the movement is lateral, or when the spear phishing is first clicked, however you want to determine it and decide it, right? Your goal is to try and move your detection capabilities as close to that as possible, subsequently, hopefully moving the boom further left, or moving your security posture further left, where you're like, hey, I'm not waiting for this if, right? Or waiting for this when, I'm going to just capitalize on that preventative side of things. But the real point that you guys picked up on, Jeff and Mike, that I just cannot exemplify more, folks, when you go and implement some sort of security posture out there, it is not an all or nothing. Like, can you stop adversaries? Well, not all of them. Okay, then forget it. Screw it. I'm going to tell you right now, go get the top 10 MITRE techniques, pull them from any report you want and block them. You're going to crush a double-digit number of adversaries, because a lot of them use the same stuff. They use the same techniques. I've had this idea for a while. There's a funnel, right? There's a million different ways you could write a spearfish or pop an exploit or a vulnerability or get into an organization. There's only so many ways I can move laterally. There's only so many ways you could harvest credentials. And I'm not saying it's a small list, but it is a finite list. And if you can start to chop away at that list piece by piece, and I'm going to throw this one out here. I just like to use this as a really good example. If mimikatz.exe executes in your environment, okay, your biggest concern tomorrow is not AI or, what the next crazy thing looks like. Right. It is, how do I detect this basic activity going on in there?
Exactly. Matt, super well said. And, one thing, I'm not picking on chat, but Christina brought up a great point about prevention setup requiring downtime. So one example that I can give you where we're not introducing downtime, but also deploying prevention is, thanks to the Lima Charlie team. They didn't ask for this as a side note. We leverage Lima Charlie as our EDR component back end, right? So obviously we're building out the detection and response rules, but specifically we're able to do things that no other EDR and no other endpoint stack is able to do. An example is our next-gen AV leverages deep learning neural networks local to the endpoint. It's all calculated in less than sub 10 millisecond response time. We've seen all of this killed zero-day ransomware before it even detonates or lands on disk. But the cool thing is that We all know as IT administrators or practitioners in here is that applications fall down. AV is prone to fail. It's prone to not make it through an update or loses its relationship to the console. So what we're doing with Lima Charlie, for example, is every 5 minutes we poll for the health and wellness of our tip of the spear. And so we do a service check. If we don't see the services running, we can do basic repair. And again, this is what happens when you pivot to a prevention mindset, that rather than add 10 to 12 to 15 different applications on the endpoint, what if I just make sure the 2 or 3 I'm running are straight as an arrow, right? They're just sharp. And so the Lima Charlie team has been incredible at that, specifically providing us a means and a way to set our own detection and response rules. And that's one way we've been able to code that out. And it's incredible. I mean, we're not just reducing our partner engineer fatigue and like keeping these tools active. Because what's the experience? A security company comes to your home and they're going to put sensors on the window, sensors on the door, the front, whatever, right? And they're going to say, as long as you make sure that these are running and you enable the protection, then we're good. So what happens? Bad guy breaks in. Of course, the sensor on the window that he happened to break into wasn't charged or battery was dead. What's the security company going to do? Not my problem. Not my problem, right? And so why? Because like I think somebody mentioned earlier, just put it in the scope, but it's excluded. And so what we believe in is rather than, hey, we're going to really dig down, we're going to focus on prevention, so much so that we're going to take some of the headache off of keeping these tools healthy and running and invest it on our side. And so do we get an alert for 0-day ransomware payloads prevented? Yeah, absolutely. Far less often than we do that. AV stopped running. What's going on? Okay, great. Troubleshoot it. Get back up and running. Less than 5 minutes. We're green.
You know what's funny, Mike? I'm not sure if you're watching this, but Eric threw out this question, this poll about what are some favorite preventative controls. Application control, application control, application control has shown up. Love this one. Those of you who are renaming Newman, I did turn my microphone off, man. You got me laughing here, renaming it to Mimi Dogs instead of Mimi Cats. That's just I like that one. But for those of you who are like, why don't you just blocking lateral movement from workstation to workstation, going through and I think disabling the internet was still a good suggestion, but I'll just leave that in my own head. But okay, Jeff picked up on it. Jeff drilled into like I think what is both the solution as well as the preventative control that's got to be in there. Because it's like, okay, disable lateral movement across workstations. Like, oh, well, how do I need to go buy this? No, you don't. Guess what? A lot of this basic functionality is included in there. And I think that's another thing that I'm hearing you say, Mike, and at least another thing I've seen as well, is the number of tools that we buy, as Eric just called out, to supplement what we already have capabilities for. It can't work that way, right? And if I got adversaries living, and man, I feel like you guys are reading my mind as I'm going through and saying this. If adversaries are living off the land, why aren't defenders? Buying more tools isn't going to work. Someone goes out there with a shovel, you show up with a giant backhoe, doesn't mean you're more efficient, right? They've got the ability to be a scalpel, you're a sledgehammer. So I think these are some really, really solid ideas for everyone who's out there. One thing I want to pick on as a great suggestion, one that I'm going to consider like a little bit of a next level preventative control. Eric dropped in there and said, disabling PowerShell under version 5. And I think little things like this, right? If we look at base level preventative measures, things like disabling network connectivity between systems that shouldn't have network connectivity, basic moment, right? Now, if we go a little bit of a step up, where we're like, let me understand some of the intricacies of the operating system or the network, and let me jump on those. PowerShell version or subversion 5 is a great example of like, well, why would I go do that? Right. You know what I mean? And as we're calling out in the chat, there's little things where it's like adversaries have figured out ways to downgrade, ways to evade security controls and things that are in place and whatnot. And this is like next level type of preventative stuff. But to the point made earlier, Mike, these aren't bringing your network down, right? This shouldn't be any downtime. Now, here's what you're going to find. I'm going to drop this out here as a fun little exercise for everyone here. If you ever want to baseline your environment, okay? Eric, is it you who said disable macros or make sure all macros are signed? Make sure all macros are signed?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to get up and running, but like there's so many attack vectors that came in with macros for the last decade. And if you have the wherewithal inside an organization, you can start to wrap your arms around that problem by enforcing macro signing. And now you've significantly reduced that particular attack surface. Again, this is more of an enterprise thing to tackle because you have to have some kind of code signing capability, but it's something I've done at a very large organization with great success.
To double, I hear so commonly the pushback of we can't disable macros because some of our people require and some of them are unsigned. Cool. Which ones? Which users? Because if you can remove 80% of the attack surface of macros, take the win. Yeah, we can quibble about signing and requiring it on the remainder, but take the win. If the vast majority of your users haven't used macros in the last year, then you can safely disable it there.
That's another little point I'll drop in. And then, Mike, I want to give you the last minute or so to remind us what great work y'all are doing. But one other thing I want to remind everyone, if someone mentioned baseline earlier in the chat, and it's not that I'm too lazy to scroll, I just don't want to at this minute, but someone mentioned baselining just a second ago. If you ever want to really do a quick baseline of your environment, right? Hey, help desk. And now I'm speaking slightly in jest, but I'm also speaking with a little bit of intention here. Hey, help desk, I'm about to disable a thing. If you get any calls, let me know, right? Because here's one thing I've heard of, seen, experienced, been through. Hey, security team, why was this thing left open? Because of some hypothetical situation that someone may have needed in the future. One of the biggest ones I can think of is email clients, leaving non-secure or single factor protocols enabled. Why? Oh, because if anyone here had a BlackBerry, it would need that to connect in. Does anyone here have a BlackBerry? No, we don't think so. Cool. So then your hypothetical situation was disproven, right?
Right.
Turn or disable it and see who cries, who complains, you know? And also, my last little piece of advice for everyone here, if the only people who complain are the C-suite and it's like the 4 of them and the other 20,000 people of the company are fine, then make the C-suite get some education and say, no, y'all need to use newer devices. We're not keeping IMAP enabled for you. All right. Everyone else needs to be secure. Mike, thanks for having us. We got about a minute left or so.
Yeah.
Give us one final description of what, some of the awesome stuff y'all are doing at BLOKWORX and things like that. We'd love to hear it before we sign off for today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to toss the link in the chat. Wherever I go and speak, I always give this out as a free takeaway. So we have a document called the 21 Blocks. It just basically roadmaps out what a framework of prevention in the realm of cybersecurity actually looks like. Doesn't mean it's inerrant. It doesn't mean we provide all the things on the block. So it's not an upsell, but specifically helps you kind of play bingo with what controls you already have and what controls you may be lacking. Obviously, we can fill the gap in some of those ways. But again, just really encouraging those that may be doubters or just skeptics, right? That there is a way to scalably and certainly deploy prevention so that ultimately end users don't have downtime due to cyber threats or security tools. And happy to partner on that. But ultimately, really great call. This was a great time for those that foster this environment. Defender Fridays is a really unique space. I've been on a couple of these types of talk flows, but this is providing a ton of value to the community. So kudos, Eric, Matt. They also did not pay me to say that. And so, yeah, no, this is awesome. We need more of this in the community.
Great. Awesome. Well, we are here weekly, and that brings us right to the top of the hour, right on time. So everyone, thank you very much. I will not make the heart symbol. I'm going to close us out here, but Eric and Chris, thank you for sharing the love. Mike, thank you for being here as well. Man, it's great to have you. For everyone else who jumped in the chat, appreciate it. Great talk, great chat, great feedback, great banter, great everything. As always, Defender Fridays, one of the best places you can spend on your Friday. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you again, I think, in exactly 1 week minus 30 minutes. See y'all then.
167.5 hours. See you all.
That's right, sir. There it is. That's the number I was looking for. Take care, everyone.
Bye, friends.